guys are.
Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the town board meeting of February 14th, Valentine's Day. Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
I moved to open the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We're gonna start off the meeting right away with our county legislator, Vidat Gashi, who very graciously came to us today and allowed us to move the meeting date many times, so thank you very much. We asked Vidat to come to just kind of give us an update, talk to us about the state of the county and issues he sees coming forward and anything that may impact the town.
Thank
So
you.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. And
Yay.
demand an applause. Thank you. And I'll keep it brief since it is Valentine's Day and you guys have better things to do than to listen to me drone on. But my first term was came as the pandemic came. So obviously that was a very different situation. We were doing a lot of catching up and a lot of dealing with emerging and unexpected situations. This last term has been a little bit different. We've been able to focus more on our priorities and push some important projects forward. One of the things in this last term, I've served as, or in the current term, I serve as Chair of Budget and Appropriations. So it's been a busy term. We've had a lot of projects and passed a budget this past year that was fiscally sound, that increased our reserves and has led to increased rating by Standard & Poor's, S&P, and Fitch's. All this while having a property tax cut for Westchester for the fourth year in a row. And something we're proud of because we didn't just do that. We were able to invest in our infrastructure, invest in some important projects throughout the county. Now, we also, this last time, were cognizant of the fact that we were under the economic situation for the county, throughout the county was tough. So we had some inflation relief provisions that we passed. The governor made it possible for jurisdictions such as Westchester County to increase the amount. So for seniors and people with disabilities, you had a property tax abatement up to $29,000. We increased that to $50,000. Maximum available immediately upon it becoming available. Gas tax holiday for the summer, going from June through the end of August, was 12 cents. A decrease in 12 cents per gallon, which isn't the biggest number, but it was something, and I thought something that helped. Now, obviously, another thing we did was we eliminated sales tax on residential energy for a period as well, and waived bus fees. Those are all things we did to help address the inflationary pressures we're dealing with, I think, throughout the county. We've also passed some legislative initiatives that we're proud of. We passed, and I was a primary sponsor of, the gun store warning label. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it was the first in the nation bill. We did it with our friends in Moms Demand Action, some of the advocacy groups. It requires gun stores to have essentially a warning label placed to indicate that, in actual fact, it decreases the safety for the people who end up buying guns. That is the dumbest way to explain it, but that is what it is. We also we had an unfortunate incident at one of the Planned Parenthood sites. So we passed a bill that would ensure access to healthcare services for people throughout Westchester. Found that important. Mental health has been something that has been a challenge. I think a challenge that was highlighted by the pandemic, shown to be important. I think it remains important. One of the things, and actually on the heels of the Police Review and Reimagining Task Force, one of the things that we were told is not every situation had to be a police response. Some of it are more appropriate as mental health. So we set up some mental health mobile units throughout so that we could address issues. First off, when you call 911, having the option to indicate that this is a mental health emergency rather than a police emergency. And then mobile health units placed strategically throughout the county so that we can address these situations. A thing that I personally am very proud of and actually comes from constituent in Newcastle, Stacy Sines and her family, a food allergy bill. We passed that food allergy bill so that we can ensure that restaurants will have a basic level of competency and understanding when it comes to allergies, how to prepare and handle foods. And actually that was a fun one because I anticipated we'd have some pushback from restaurants to say, oh, this is an extra imposition. In actual fact, the restaurants were supportive and some were actually already doing things like this. There are a number of families that refuse to go to restaurants for fear of them not being aware and careful. And things not as advanced as you would think, if you're gonna use a knife for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you can't use that same knife. The cross-contamination concerns were, I think, in some ways elementary, but incredibly important. And I think something that was well received by both families and restaurants, and you don't always get that, so something I'm proud of. I feel like I've spoken a lot, but last item I wanted to address was redistricting. On the county level, we had redistricting as well this year, you may be aware. It was a process that's now finalized, but we had hearings throughout the county. We had, obviously you do a census every 10 years, and after that census you do a redistricting. This year we had an extra layer of work because the requirements changed. Previously it could be a 10% difference between the highest population district and lowest population district. That was reduced to 5%. Doesn't sound like a big difference, but it does require some moving. And for us, or here, the biggest challenge was our neighboring district, the second legislative district, was low in population. They needed to add. So they came into part of what was the fourth district before, into Somers. Newcastle stayed intact. There's no change for Newcastle. Basically, I lost some of Somers and added some of Ossining. So that is part of District 4 with you all. I think that's it. I think I've said quite a bit. Obviously, if you have any questions or concerns or any items that you'd like to address, I'm happy to.
So what does the county, what are your thoughts about the housing compact that's coming down out of Albany? And I know the county executive spoke to it a little bit in his briefing, I think it was yesterday. But what are the thoughts? Are people getting together to try to make sense of it and propose options or changes or recommendations?
Yeah, I think we obviously had ADUs were proposed earlier, and there was quite a bit of pushback. And I my personal view, and it's not the view of the board as a whole rather, but zoning and housing is a local competency that should be reserved and retained by the local. I would feel that to impose that would be an overstepping from the governor. I've not seen the final proposal yet, so we'll see what happens. Obviously, they're going through their budget now. Their budget has some challenges and some difficult situations, including shifting Medicaid payments from the state to the county, which would amount to a $46 million increase, or rather decrease to us. And that is obviously something we are vigorously fighting against.
I saw the comment that was put in for it, yeah.
So I think there's various efforts. To the extent that I can, I will be opposing efforts that I view would overstep responsibilities and bounds of the executive.
Could you remind me of something regarding the whole budget process? So once the governor puts out her budget proposal, I know you have the Senate budget proposal and then you have the Assembly. Do they address policy issues as well as the budget numbers? Meaning the Senate and the Assembly, would they possibly come back with their version of a housing compact?
I'd have to admit that I'm no expert on the state budget process in
Yeah,
that.
I used to know, but for some reason now it's getting a little vague in my mind as to whether they can counter with their own policy proposals.
I know that it's not over, that
But
they're
it's a
still having
negotiation.
conversations, the negotiation's still happening. I've never served in that office.
Right.
I barely know the things that I cover, so
That's, no, I understand that's not, your purview there, but insofar as you have relationships, I was hoping that you could just give us a hint of what might be going on. Do you have any sense of what the other, what the legislative houses are thinking?
Well, I can tell you that we had on Friday last a legislative session or a meeting with our legislative the assembly, the state senators and state assembly members that cover Westchester. They came into the Board of Legislators and remotely, and we expressed our concerns. The concerns we expressed, I think, started with the imposition of the $46 million extra charge. Had a number of items. We explained to them what our priorities are, and then I think a number of us will reach out to our state senators and assembly members and advocate. But it's not a process that we have direct control over. It's more of a question of advocacy and it's something of that nature rather than ability to force it one way or the other.
So you should know that I've been working with a lot of the county mayors and supervisors
Yes,
and
you have,
associations, and so we're kind of coming up with some resolutions that are not yet final, but my plan was to bring them to the board hopefully next week for discussion purposes to the work session, so we could talk about them, see what we think, and then maybe come to our own conclusion as to what we want to advocate for, and I don't wanna speak for everybody, but I think that we all kind of agree that increasing housing, whether it's affordable housing, attainable housing, or just housing in general, as part of a housing shortage, is a laudable goal and something that's important, but I agree that this is something that, each town has its own unique circumstances and challenges, and we need to be incentivized to reach certain goals, but not be mandated how to do that. So I think that's a very broad explanation of kind of where I'm coming from, but it's something we should talk about.
Everybody is coming from that point of view,
Yeah.
but my concern is really how we can open up a discussion or, a way to bring our concerns directly to the governor, because that's who's really making the policy decisions. And every community is different. I think in Newcastle, we have talked many times about revitalizing our hamlets, and we do want to bring about some mixed use developments and multifamily housing. So within that goal, we'll have our own constraints regarding infrastructure capacity, and I imagine that every community will have its own unique features. And so I'm wondering if there's a path towards having a discussion with the executive branch. I'm sure that within Westchester County, we can all come up with what we think is a reasonable objective overall. But then it's a matter of opening up that conversation and having not just a top-down approach, but a two-way conversation. And I just wonder, that doesn't happen very often. I've seen that in other contexts with other mandates that come down, and there's often the complaint that there's never any feedback sought from the localities. And I wonder if there's a way to change that. We have a new governor, and I think that this governor is open to a collaborative framework. And it would be great if we could all get together and try to open up those avenues of communication so that we can begin sort of change the culture in terms of mutual exchange of information.
I agree 100%, and I think my answer, and might not be the best answer, is you've got to do your part. I think, and I hear your concerns. I share 100% your concerns. I agree incentives. That's how the county has done it for our affordable housing mandate. We discretionary funding to communities that don't have affordable housing legislation. That's been the county. That's the way the county has handled that portion of it. I think an incentive a structure based on incentives rather than trying to, frankly, usurp a responsibility that isn't the executives, and may well lead to legal challenges afterwards, would be desirable. Now, I hear your concerns, and I will voice them to the people that I deal with, and to the extent that I can, as vigorously as I can. And I would invite you to do the same. I think more is better.
What we wanna voice is not so much to stop the conversation, is that in order to have the conversation, to Vicky's point, these proposals need to be taken out of the budget that needs to be voted through in April and brought into the legislative process, where then we can work with state assemblymen, state senators to really, which is what Pete Harcum is doing with his ADU legislations. He actually, it was in the budget last year, some of it, that was taken out. He heard what people said, kind of went back, and he's revising it, and what I understand is now gonna come out of that is something that a lot of people can live with. And that's really what needs to be done here. It needs to come out of the budget process and go into the legislative process so that we can all, as municipalities and as elected leaders and citizens, talk about the needs of each entity and each municipality and how we can make it all work together. So that's what we wanna advocate. It's not a no, it's a take it out of this and move it to where it should be.
Oh, I understand, and I think you don't want the argument colored as you don't want to present it as something that it's not. There are and even by saying incentives versus it's not saying that we can't have the conversation, not saying that can't do something, but careful and considerate when we do it. Fully aware, fully on board.
Thank you.
All right,
No, pleasure.
Thank you.
thank you. Anything else for Vedant?
No, thanks for being with us on Valentine's Day and for changing the meeting date multiple times.
My
Really,
pleasure.
really
Thank you
appreciate
so much
it.
as well.
My pleasure. Pleasure spending Valentine's Day with you all. And I look forward to coming back. So
Perfect.
appreciate it.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Great to talk to you.
Go celebrate with your family. Thank you so much, Vedant.
Getting those names, okay.
Did you give him a cupcake?
He did have
He
a
had one
cupcake,
already,
yes.
I wouldn't let him leave without it.
Bye-bye. All right, well, thank you to our county legislator. So why don't we move to any announcements, Jill?
So just to, actually, one quick thing is that unfortunately all good things must come to an end, and by the end of the week, the beautiful holiday lights are gonna be taken down. I know, they,
That
They
just
were
means
holiday-
spring is coming.
that means that
Yes.
spring,
Right.
thank you,
Yes.
that means that spring is coming, but I think everyone has really enjoyed them being up, and the great news is that BAB did a fabulous job this year. They built on their past successes. I cannot wait to see what next winter looks like. It's gonna be fabulous. So kudos to them for doing such a great job, and we really tried to stall it as long as we could.
Can I just say,
Sure.
they did a fantastic job, and I know Ally is gonna be taking over the BAB as liaison now, and I think they'll love you,
Thank you.
you'll do a great job as liaison, but I just wanted to say as I leave the BAB how appreciative I am of their commitment, their dedication to what they do. They really love what they do. They're very conscientious and they work so hard at it. And I'd love to see them come to board meeting to present what their ideas are. I think they would like to
Yeah.
do that. But I just wanna say thank you, and I enjoyed being your liaison, and I look forward to what comes next.
So yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Not for nothing, no one ever asked me to be on the liaison or
Well, you
the
don't know what you're
committee chair.
missing.
I think I had a lot of input. We put a climbing wall on the side of the building.
Well, that's one, yeah, of course.
I
Stick to
do
your
wanna ask
strengths.
them next year, and I
Some of
mentioned
your
this to you
ideas.
too. the lights, we did a phenomenal job, the more lights, next year, if we can also consider with the BAB, lighting some trees in Millwood, if possible. And also, I would love to put some sort of ribbon on top of the poles so that in the daytime, when they're not lit up, they still look very festive. But it doesn't interfere with our lights and would allow us to keep them up as long as we have. I love that we waited so long. It's great.
I just have to make a telephone call or two, so I'm gonna
Yes.
excuse myself.
Okay. Supervisor's report, everyone can read it tomorrow. The one thing I did just want to publicly thank the Friends of the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. They've been doing a fabulous job bringing us programming. I know Holly, you were there on Saturday night for the comedy show, as was I. It was hysterical. And they're really doing a great job trying to bring great programming to town in a cost-effective manner that's also something that's available and interesting to all facets of our population. So I wanna just purposely say thank you officially at this meeting. All right, in terms of our community corner, I also wanted to just wish a happy 90th birthday to Eric Nicolason. He's been really a true stalwart of our community, and I just wanted to say happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Eric.
All right, was there any?
I have one thing, Dawn I was talking to Dawn earlier and she just wanted me to mention, Dawn Greenberg, pardon me, that they expect the Magic Treehouse theme across town with the merchants as we lead up to, I think, what is this, the 10th?
10th anniversary, yes.
And they currently have 180 confirmed authors. She wanted to share that. And they're trying to schedule a June event downtown called Jump Into Summer Reading. And they hope to collaborate with everyone, including the Merchants Library and CCSD. And she just wanted me to remind people that they could use volunteers all year round.
Great. And yes, Dawn has been phenomenal, always, but especially this year, in trying to make sure that we incorporate our merchants and our downtown into the book festival so that it really becomes a full community event. And I know they did just get, I forget her name, who wrote the Magic Treehouse books. Yes, Osborne, which is fabulous. I know my kids loved that growing up.
Same.
And so it's very exciting, and so congratulations.
She describes it as a huge get.
It is a huge get. All right, so Lauren, is there anything else from the town administrator?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, in that case, we are going to have an introduction of our proposed legislation for partial tax exemptions for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. Ed, take it away.
Okay, so this is new legislation. It's something that we've worked on with Josh Herman, who's here tonight, so thank you, Josh, for all your help, and if I get any of this wrong, check me. But this comes from a state statute that was enacted this past December, and it made certain changes to an existing exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers, one that we've had on the books in Newcastle since 2003. But the state law made some changes, and what we and other municipalities have to do now is align our local codes with what the state statute now says. So that's what the proposed local law does. We're introducing it tonight because the board met with leaders of the volunteer firefighters and ambulance corps last week, workshopped this issue, and a necessary step in the legislative process is introducing legislation. That's what we're doing tonight. So just in terms of highlights, the local law continues the 10% maximum tax exemption. Now, again, like I said, we've had on the books since 2003. It reduces the years in service eligibility requirement from 5 to 2 years. That's a change. There is a there's a benefit for surviving spouses of members with 20 years of service, and there's also a new benefit for spouses of members who are killed in the line of duty. I think those are the highlights. Josh, did I leave anything out?
I think you touched them.
So in my view, we are fortunate in this town to have a volunteer, fire departments and volunteer ambulance corps. If we didn't, our taxes would be much, much higher. And we're so appreciative of all they do. It is not easy work, and takes a lot of hours, a lot of training. So we are always looking for ways to say thank you to our volunteer firefighters and ambulance. So this is one way that we can do that. So I'm excited to pass this legislation on to, for public comment, and something that we might be able to do to really just say thank you and incentivize not only the people already working, but future volunteers to come on and join those departments and really help to make a difference in our town.
So the next step will be a public hearing. There's a motion in the consent agenda to set that for February 28th.
Great, thank you.
Perfect.
Thanks.
All right, Jill, anything else before we move on to public comment?
No.
Okay, so is there any public comment, new business? Given that no one is here other than Josh,
Josh is here.
is there anyone online who has a public comment or new business?
Not about Josh.
I'm sorry?
No hands are raised.
No hands are raised, okay. Well, in that case, we will move on to our public hearing. And that is a public hearing about a local law amending chapter 116 for the real property tax exemption for seniors. Can I have a motion to open that local law, the public hearing?
Motion to move to public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Ed, would you like to brief us on what this is?
Well, is
Maybe
legislator
Josh.
or
Or Josh?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Come on up.
Can I use your notes? So this is a local law that I was talking to you a little bit about that, and this will raise the maximum income from 29,000 to 50,000, and that would provide for a 50% exemption. It is a sliding scale, and that would go from 50,000 all the way up to 58,399. And just because we're such a high value municipality, we currently have 31 exemptions on the books, which is unheard of. When I share this in my assessment circles, they look at me like I'm crazy because they have thousands. Some municipalities have thousands. So I think that it's a nod to help the older folks with limited income. Unfortunately, the one thing that I can't do, which I did do for the fireman and ambulance worker, is the tax impact. There's no way to tell who in town is 65 or older and has that type of an income. So we're gonna be a little surprised the first couple, 3 years as we see who sort of bubbles up to the surface. But I mean, I think that's a,
Josh, just curious, is that your gross income?
so that's your total income. There's Enhanced Star, which uses adjusted gross. This is now total income. To understand that in the governor's
income
budget,
taxable by the state, so if you earn certain,
everything.
Everything.
I think there's a few,
So gross, not adjusted gross.
not adjusted gross. You know, I think there's some Holocaust payments that are excluded. There's very specific language within the law. Yes.
Josh, is this something that they actively request or is there outreach?
As far as public outreach, I mean,
Is it incumbent upon the people who meet those
Beneficiary.
criteria to come and seek it, or
How do we advertise it?
so ordinarily, it's on the back of your property tax bill, if you take a look at that. A new law was passed that we are now required to send a second notice out 30 days prior to our tentative roll, which is gonna go out about May 1st. So there's that. If this board passes it, I would be happy to help write a blurb for our newsletter.
Yes, please, you read my mind.
Yes, so yes, there would be some of that. I know the county's actively involved in promoting They passed it earlier in the year, and so this will then sync us with the county's maximum limits as well.
Thank you.
Alright, any other questions? Okay, we will open it up to public comment. Given that nobody is here in the audience, is there anyone online who has any public comment on this?
No hands are raised.
Okay, so I'm gonna speak slowly in case anybody pops on and wants to say anything. But otherwise, I would propose that we close the public hearing, given there are no comments, leave it open for written comments for a week.
Sure.
Well, there is a need, and Josh can speak to this, I think, to move a little bit more quickly, just because of the timing of the next assessment roll. So we actually had a resolution prepared and distributed for the board's consideration tonight, thinking that there really wouldn't be any public comments or certainly no
Right.
objection.
Okay, so we don't normally do that, but given that I don't think anyone's going to object to this and there are no public comments, I'm comfortable doing that. Board?
As am I.
Yeah, I would be comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, alright, then can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alright, thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank
you, Josh.
And yes,
Happy
Josh, if
Valentine's
you could send me something, that would be wonderful.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Safe
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move to our resolutions, starting with our consent agenda items. Before we do that, is there any board member that wanted to remove anything from the consent agenda? Alright, well then, who would like to start with resolutions? Holly, you good?
Sure. I move we adopt the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can we keep going?
You can do this page and then Ally, you'll do the next page.
I move to approve payment of claims in the amount of $364,280.73. 2022 expenditures totaling $219,694.71. And 2023 expenditures totaling $144,586.02. Listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detailed voucher detail reports, all dated February 13th, 2023. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, February 15th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to accept the retirement of James Dumser from the position of Lieutenant of the Newcastle Police Department effective February 28th, 2023. The town would like to thank Lieutenant Dumser for his 14 plus years of dedicated service. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to accept it? Can
I
we-
know, I gotta tell you, yeah.
Very briefly, I don't, Lisa, when you started, was he an officer? I know we promoted him to sergeant, or we promoted him to lieutenant.
Voted to
Was he,
lieutenant.
when was, I don't recall, he must have been a sergeant obviously in between. Did we promote him or was he
I think we
previously-
did. I think we promoted him to
I
sergeant.
don't recall, but he's a gentleman and a terrific asset.
A wonderful guy.
Wonderful.
Loss, so.
Wish him a happy retirement.
Yes,
Yes,
very.
thank you for your
Thank you,
service.
absolutely.
Happy
Maybe we should bring
retirement.
him some cupcakes.
I may have overboard, just.
I move to adopt a local law amending chapter 116 regarding real property tax exemption for seniors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the award of bid for the wood timber retaining wall and staircase replacement project at Gedney Park to Peter J. Landy Inc. for the base bid and the add alternate in the total amount of $218,020.
My second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And before we move on, can I say how happy
Please
we
say.
are and all of the wonderful baseball and softball players in this town will be that those that staircase is getting replaced, and we promise to make sure that we can have those fields and dugouts that are adjacent to these stairs open as quickly as possible.
Very happy
Yeah,
for the
so,
players and the
it would
parents
be-
to walk out.
Yeah, I do know that Lisa in her supervisor's report is going to fully detail the
Yes, it
extent of the
does.
project.
Excellent.
But I think it would be really helpful if we stopped referring to it only as a staircase project,
Yes,
because I
it's a
think that was
retaining
very
wall.
misleading. So the entire retaining wall system is gonna be demolished and then rebuilt. And that's one of the reasons why this ended up, we got bids from between 218, which is our low, to over $500,000. It's gonna take 2 months to do. It is a mammoth project.
And does that affect the bleachers?
There's no bleachers
No,
right now.
no,
at all.
No.
No.
That's not
bleachers
where the
right
bleachers
there.
are, I'm trying to
But
remember.
there's a
playground.
lot
I
of
used to sit
equipment.
there quite often, but now I don't remember where the bleachers are.
Yeah, they're to
Yeah.
the, if
So-
you're facing the field, they're to the
But
left.
there will be a
Right.
lot of equipment and things that they'll
Yeah.
need access to there, so that's why I appreciate that clarification, Jill, because it's true, it's not just a stairs, it's a retaining wall and it's a big
Right.
job.
If it was just stairs, we would have done it a long time ago.
And I think that was
It's a big project.
yeah, I think that was the source of a lot of frustration for people who are looking at us like, why can't you just get a staircase done? And all I kept thinking to myself is, in my best dreams, it's just a staircase. But this is like the sort of job that just snowballed. But we've got a handle on it now, we've got a pre-construction meeting coming down the pike, and we're hitting the floor running, so.
It's slated to start beginning of March. So
2
let's
months.
hope no snow and bad weather. I knocked on wood. All right,
We have one more.
one more. What is the last? Do you have the other one?
I didn't get it.
And this
I
is for
just
the
emailed
ZBA.
You just
So
emailed
I
me.
move
Emailed
to
it?
I don't have
authorize
it.
the
Go ahead.
Oh, I see, sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I move to authorize the appointment of Ronald Zendek. Is that right? And I apologize if I've said it improperly. As a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 5-year term effective February 14th, that's today, to February 13th, 2028.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so with that being said, is there anything else?
Yeah, so just a reminder, housekeeping, that we do not have a meeting next week. Our next meeting is on the 28th because there's school break next week.
Correct.
Right, okay.
We made the decision a number of years ago not to hold meetings during school break.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So with that being said, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're going into executive session.